Hey everybody, welcome to the Motor Trend Hot Rod Roadkill, whatever you want to call it, garage. You can see there's some roadkill cars and hot rod cars over there. I'm not sure what I can show if there's any secrets. I've seen all those three. Anyway, we're here to talk about this guy, the LS3 we've put in the 240SX. And look at that fitment. I'll walk you through where we're at in the installation process. We're maybe halfway. Overall, there's still quite a few things need to be done to get this thing running. We're close though, and we're not facing any major hurdles yet, which is cool, but also kind of worrying because you start wondering what we're missing. But first, let's talk about why we did this engine. I've had a lot of comments asking about why we did this instead of an SR20, why we did this instead of an RB26, why we did this instead of any other engine you can put in this chassis. And you can put a lot of drivetrains in this chassis. This bay is really accommodating, as you can see. Why did we go with the E-Rod LS3? Well, one, E-Rod means it's emissions compliant, smog legal. Once you put on the charcoal canister, which is this guy, that's not where we're going to put it, but that's what that is. Once you hook up all the evap lines to that, once you plug in the ECU, once you use the catalytic converters, which are over here, once you put all this stuff on, you slap on an EO sticker, and boom, you're emissions compliant. You can go to get the car smogged and not run into any issues. Parts availability. Anywhere you take this engine in the US, you're going to be able to find parts for, whether it's AutoZone, Pep Boys, whatever, any Chevy dealership, you're going to be able to take care of this engine. It's a light engine. Believe it or not, I've seen a lot of people complaining about heavy V8s. This is an all aluminum engine, and it weighs less than the 4-cylinder that came with a 240SX to begin with. You may not believe it, it's the truth. We're going to weigh this car once it's completely done and compare the weights in the videos and stuff just so you can see. We're going to lose weight over the front axle with this engine, believe it or not, despite more than doubling the displacement and almost tripling the power output. And that brings us to the next thing. This engine's rated at 430 horsepower stock. We don't have to worry about changing intake, cam, exhaust, blah, 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 blah. We have to mess around with adding power parts to make more output. In fact, we're okay restricting power because 430 horsepower in a 2,800 pound car is gonna be real quick. That's a great power to weight ratio, and you don't have to touch the engine to do that. Some of the other, like especially the SR20, you can get 400 horsepower out of that. Is it gonna be a reliable 400 horsepower? I don't know, on top of everything else. Not to mention this engine is lighter and it'll have a better power band because of it. These things make torque nice and low and rev out to about, I don't know, 6,800 RPM or so. That's a good power band. I love naturally aspirated throttle response. That's also a plus, and on and on and on and on. Okay, so LS3 itself, you hear 6.2 liters and you think, wow, that's a big engine. Well, it's actually not. As you can see how well it fits into this engine bay. It's a pretty compact engine for the power that it has. I mean, you're talking 430 horse in the same space roughly that you could fit a 4-cylinder in. And that's really cool. Of course, it's a push rod engine, and a lot of people may snicker at that because, all the hot rods, all the modern high-tech stuff have, quad cam and whatnot. Overhead cam engines are so much more better for whatever reasons. Well, look at the hood clearance that we get because we don't have camshafts, at the top of the thing to block off. We're going to be able to shut the hood on this engine. If we had cams, these heads would be like way out to here and you wouldn't be able to shut the hood. I mean, if you want to go the roadkill route and take your hood off, that's cool too. But, being able to shut the hood is nice. In fact, one of the reasons why we did, this instead of an LSA is because we don't need that kind of power. Also, you have a blower, right here. That would look wicked, but again, that's probably overkill. So all in all, I mean, for parts availability, for emissions, for the fact that we don't have to touch it to make a ton of power, to the fact that it'll be, lighter than the 4-cylinder, I think that this engine is a pretty solid choice for this car. Of course, the E-Rod is really, really expensive, but that's for the smog compliance, emissions compliance stuff. That's really important when you're talking about engine swaps in a Nissan. You don't have to do an LS3 E-Rod. You can fit any of these LS series engines in this chassis. They'll all fit, and that's really cool, and you can spend a lot less money doing so. So where are we at in the install? Well, let's see here. We've got the old power steering reservoir line there. We've got a new clutch master cylinder that came as part of our field racing kit. We've got We had to swap out exhaust manifolds. The our E-Rod kit came with exhaust manifolds that exit towards the back over here. So this would be the passenger side that exits towards the back. We had to put on center exit exhausts so we could clear the steering rack. That's actually the big issue on this car, is clearing the stuff on the driver's side. Let me get underneath and show you what kind of space we're working with. I don't know how well you can see, but we're basically looking straight at the driver's side exhaust manifold. That'll work. It'll be tight, but it'll work, and that steering rack's gonna ultimately get pretty hot, I think, but we imagine it'll be okay to put, you know, hook that exhaust up. Again, this is really only an issue because we're going for smog compliance, emissions compliance. If you didn't care about that, you'd get yourself a set of long tube headers. In fact, the company that we got this kit from, Field Racing, they make long tube headers that'll clear. It's a lot better on the passenger side. You don't have the same clearance issues over here, but you just got to worry about those fuel lines. We're going to try to mount the fuel pressure regulator and fuel filter in a way that clears these guys out so they don't get too hot, so we don't start boiling fuel. That's a bad thing. What else? What do we have left? We've got to mount the ECU. We've got to finish up the wiring. As you can see, we ran wires through the engine, kind of tucked them away behind and underneath the fuel rails and stuff. That's all set up and looking good. The only real bummer about this setup is the transmission. It's a great transmission, but the placement of it is going to be tough because, as you can tell, it's a little too dark in here to see. If I get a light and show you guys. Got our little GM Performance sticker. Look at that. Yeah. Now there's light. Okay, see how far forward that shifter is? That's gonna be a minor issue. We had to cut out part of the tunnel to get the shifter to fit because this T56 Magnum is a little short than the standard 5-speeder that came with the KA. So we're gonna have to make a shifter that pushes, that moves back to get the same OE position shift action. Despite that, we're also gonna have to trim the dash a little bit to get that shifter to fit, which is a bummer because our dash is like so beautiful and it feels really bad to have to, you know, shave or break that dash because it's in such great shape. But oh well, that's just what happens. There we go. Let me put this light back. Clearance is kind of a big issue. We had to take off. I mean, it's amazing that you can get this engine to fit, but things that we had to do, or things that came with the kit. This is the old oil pan, the one that, or the new oil pan that came off the LS3, but we took that off to accommodate the front cross member underneath the front end. So here's the new oil pan, and there's a cross member, and there's maybe half of an inch, maybe less of clearance between the two, and you couldn't get fitment better than that. That's really, really nice fitment there. The Field Racing swap kit, I gotta say, is really impressive. It's really nice build quality, especially on the engine mounts. This is a Moroso pan, obviously you can see by that right there. The mounts themselves, these guys are beautiful. They look real tough, real burly, and they're gonna work real nice, I think, ultimately. Yeah, the Field Racing kit comes with a drive shaft, mounts, lines, fuel lines, and a clutch oil filter relocation kit. We're gonna move the oil filter roughly around here. We're gonna have to put you know, this guy against the frame rail there to make that work, and we should be able to clear everything. It just is probably going to eliminate the potential to have air conditioning in the future. Bummer, but you know, is what it is. Comes with these new oil lines, which you can't see because it's so dark, but they're wrapped in like a heat resistant shielding and stuff. So basically, what do we have left? We got to get a new radiator. We're going to get those from Ishimoto. We've got a fueled intake system on the way. Fuel does a pretty comprehensive swap if you can't get the picture yet. I mean, intake, exhaust, and all the lines and stuff. We're gonna have to mount the oil relocation plate, blah, blah, blah. We're gonna get a digital dash from RacePack, which will be really cool because it's got data acquisition stuff built into it, and shift lights and all that good stuff. All the wiring, we gotta get, and that's kinda it. And Mighty Car Mods, love you guys. You guys are great. Throw out to you guys. But otherwise, we can't wait to get this thing running. And it should be really cool once it is. I mean, when we finally got the engine and trans in there, we just sort of stood back and looked at it, and just like, it was kind of like guys standing around a fire, just like, yes, we have made something. This is looks pretty impressive. In fact, our shop manager, he just looked at this thing and said, this car's an engine stand now, because it's gonna be pretty wild. I can't wait to get this thing running and to smoke a lot of those tires. So again, all this stuff is, we're still working on a lot of this stuff. A lot of these lines aren't finished yet. You know, these guys aren't even plugged in, and yada, yada, yada. But it should be going soon, and I think you guys will enjoy it. We certainly are. Anyway, if you got any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and hope to show you guys this thing doing donuts next time.